Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hermitcraft. And if you saw the last one, well, you'll know that we are saying goodbye to this place and hello to our new base underground. Now, shortly I'll be explaining how I built the entrance to this area, and it's important that you listen along with what I have to say. But first of all, let me explain our current trajectory of things to do. I need some slime blocks to work with redstone so that we can build a tree farm. And you might be thinking, you've already got the honey blocks to move stuff around. Well, I need to use both honey blocks and slime blocks in tandem together. So we need to get a slime farm so that we can build a tree farm. And it's going to be a custom designed one. And I need all of that wood to then build our master storage system for the new base. So that's like the chain of events that we're currently going to work our way through. So with that understood, we are now free to fly off over the mountains towards the entrance to our base. And here it is again, looking absolutely glorious. You might notice that the eyes don't look as dark as they did before. I have taken the time to head in here and light up the place. So yes, this place was crawling with zombies, creepers and skeletons and all the baddies, and I think I've managed to light up all of the spots around here where they can spawn, and now you can see the place doesn't look quite as mysterious because we've got like loads of dirt blocks hung over from where I've been building this. And technically the bottom of the jawbone isn't built either. I wasn't sure entirely what I wanted to do with this. And of course the shadow of the giant skull leaves us with lots of visitors down below. Anyhoozle, we are here to talk about how this was magically constructed with the aid of a mod known as Light Magica. And when I press these buttons right here, you can see that something has changed. And I want to make it super clear that this is a client-side mod, meaning that nothing in the world or on the server is actually being changed. These are a bunch of visual cues to show you where the blocks you need to place will go. And the schematic that I put together for this, as you can see, had way more bone blocks than I actually needed to place. And this includes the jaw area that I commented on just a moment ago. As you can see, we can manipulate the layers of where we're supposed to be placing blocks. And so I may construct that up at a later point. I'm not entirely sure what my plan here is. So here is the menu of the mods. It gives you the ability to place ghost schematics in the world for you to recreate. I've done quite a few already this season, and I've just pasted in one where I was prototyping an iron farm design, so you can kind of see how it just like sits here in the world, but it's not actually any blocks. And this means that I can move it about and suss out exactly where I need this thing to be inside of the Hermitcraft world. And that's how I figured out the precise and wonderful placement of this skull. And of course there's more than this. There's the ribcage down below, which I'm hoping we'll actually get to start work on this episode, and I am super excited for. But the thing that we need to talk about is who uses this mod. Some of us on Hermitcraft do, and it's up to us, I guess, to explain to all of you if we like using this mod or not. In the past, for those of you that have been watching for seasons on end, you may remember us openly using this, and then at one point in time we had a discussion where we realized that not everyone felt the same way about this mod, and that some felt that their builds might be undermined by others using this on the server. Well, that discussion has kind of come around again, and some of us really do want to actually show us using this. So remember, just because I use it doesn't mean every hermit uses this mod. Some players like to do their builds entirely in survival, some like to build them in creative first and copy them block by block over to the world, and a few of us like to use Light Magica. So I want to make it really clear this is not something that everyone uses, and this is also part of the beauty of the game. Everyone finds their own way of playing it, and for me this is perfectly fine. It takes a long time to put something like this together in creative mode, and then it's just immensely helpful to know where exactly you're going to be placing the blocks in survival. So I've been dead keen on making my way into the ribcage, which is going to involve way more than just bone blocks. And when we get down to this level here, you can see that I built everything on the surface and I didn't go any deeper. So as I start to remove some of these blocks, it shows me where the bone blocks are next going to be. And so the process for me now is to dig downwards like this, and then where I can see there are bone blocks, I fill them in just like so, and it just makes my life a lot easier. And I'm also not going to be honouring everything 100%. As you can see, there are actually bone blocks that split up this part of the neck that leads down, or the spine. And I don't want to put those blocks there because we're going to fly through here with the elytra eventually. And I should have done this already, but I've now tidied up the schematic, so it makes it a lot easier for me to see what I'm doing. And when I dig around the edges here, you can see how there are different colours to let you know that the wrong or right block is in the place. And so this is the process now, and we've got a ways down below to go. That means I've also got another problem here. My beacons, yes, these are a pain to set up because you have to come up so high in the world. We're at like 250 around here. This one, unfortunately, is slightly out of range, so I'm going to have to put like another beacon beam closer to where we're digging. Or maybe I can just have like a little tunnel to get in range of it. I'm literally out of range by like 10 blocks. Ha! And now that is going to make my life so much easier. Oh, yes it did, and now my work here is sort of done, but I've never really piloted flying in here that much. The exit is on the opposite side. So I did this a handful of times in my creative world. It's just going to take some getting used to more than anything. Aha. And then what you see right here will open up massively and become the ribcage, where I'll have tons and tons of space to fly around. Getting out of here, though, you can see the exit straight up, but you'll be swooping out of this area. This will just be a nightmare to test because we're so close and immediately you hit a couple of blocks. But I think in general, getting out of this thing is probably going to be easier than going in. You can also take it a little slower too. Yeah, I reckon I'll get used to this with time. So you might be expecting me to do some digging over there now and clear out the space for the ribcage. We might get to that later in this episode. As of right now though, I need to dig out another hole for another project. And I think the way that I want to do this is with TNT. So I've cleared out some of my shulker boxes so that we can head over to the desert and grab tons and tons of sand. And while I was doing that, I discovered this. What's that right there? Well, when I was dumping loads of materials into this chest, yeah, that's where Grian's Easter egg was hiding. So look at that. We've discovered another one. I think there might just be one or two left in the base now. Also, for some reason, this thing is renamed Greg. Oh, think about it for half a second. Grian egg, right? Okay then, 4 full shulker boxes of sand. This should be more than enough for our needs for now, but I will need more TNT in the future for our activities, and I thought I'd just show you how much the hermits have ripped this area up for all of its materials. You know what's next, right? This old place. Yes, we have all the gunpowder that we need to make vast amounts of TNT. So I mentioned at the beginning of this video that we needed a slime farm to build our tree farm. And you probably know what this is the beginnings of, right? Because there is indeed a slime over here. And we should use the looting sword on these suckers. And now I've got myself a slime face. But anyways, let's talk about what's going on here. I am not far away from where the ribcage is located, where we have a quad slime chunk and then some. And I've worked on a custom design. Everything I do this season, I want to try and make my own unique designs where possible. And that has resulted in this circular shape around a central contraption that's going to lure the slimes in. But the thing is, we want to dig this down to the bottom of the world. And so I've set up my beacon and we got the instant mine effects, but of course that doesn't work on deep slate, and the difference is tremendous. It took me over an hour to dig out all that you see right here, and we're not even like, I don't know, a tenth of the way all the way down to the bottom. And that's when I was thinking that I wanted to use a TNT duper over here, but maybe, why not, just use some regular TNT for once. When it comes to deep slate, I really have no idea what the best way to do this is. In fact, I would have no idea with stone as well. So I figured maybe we start off with an experiment. Looks like I'm going to have to ignite them one by one, but look at that. I think we get a good idea of the blast resistance here. I think I've spaced them out correctly from the get-go, right? Yeah, look at that. And now we've dug ourselves a trench. So I think we're going to have to look at these like their little 3x3 areas, so 9 blocks in total. And if we just go straight to the bottom of the world, and you can barely see me, right? I didn't bring a light source with me. Well, my idea here is that we face downwards, place a TNT, then 2 blocks of sand, then TNT, 2 blocks of sand, TNT, and I'm hoping that this will set off a chain reaction. And finally, I can start to actually see something. Okay, we're near the top. Let's destroy that, ignite this, and see what happens. Do we get a chain reaction? Okay, let's stand over the edge. Yes! The answer is clearly yes, we do. Wow, it's still going. These explosions are going for quite some time. Now this does beg a question, okay? I have to dig all the way to the bottom in one pillar of blocks, which I'm going to do anyway, then fill them back up with blocks coming out. So let's say we consider that the mining speed of 2. That's 2 out of 9, so in theory it should definitely be quicker, but I also spent a heck of a long time gathering the sand. But you know what? That was quite relaxing, and I think all these explosions will be too. So before we set up a big rig of explosions, I have an observation to make, and that is that the size of this seems to increase a little bit with the chain reaction of explosions. So we're probably going to space out our TNT pillars a little more and then clear up a bunch of blocks after. But I also had this thought, what would happen if you did this with scaffolding? And the scaffolding itself is a little trickier to place. You might also notice that this doesn't go down to the very bottom of the world, because I figured maybe you'd want to dig the last few layers and get our hands on some diamonds. So let's see how this chain reaction goes. Oh, it seems to me, yeah, like the TNT is kind of dropping through the scaffolding. It's going faster, but at the same time, you can see it's not quite as consistent in terms of width and whatnot. I think I'm going to stick with using sand, and yes, I did spot the diamonds over here. So I decided to get a whole section ready and do this all in sequence. They're spaced out a little further than you might imagine, because I suspected some sort of chain reaction, and you can kind of see that kicking off right about now. The TNT explosions go a little crazy, and then I don't think it really did a good job ripping everything out here. I really do think the way to go is probably just to do one pillar at the time. So when you get back up to the top, you ignite it and then move on to the next one. And you might have noticed that not all of them got ignited, so I've hopped back down here. You can also see there's quite a few blocks left over, which I have to now go around and sort out myself. So there's still a lot of digging to do in this area, and I think this is just going to take a very long time. Oh, will it now? Will it take a long time? Oh, I'm exhausted. I felt like this was one of those moments where I just needed to get it done and then check back in with you later on. And I haven't kept a timer, but this thing must have taken at least 8 hours. Wow, it is really ominous just to like float around on the way down here because it's so dark. And you'll notice that there is a lack of slimes in this area. They are not spawning here yet because we have more work to do, like lighting up all of the caves in the area. The project has quite a long way to go, but I can show you the mechanics of this thing in action when we build it down the bottom. It's all down there that it's going to be happening. But for now, let's just check out like the crazy amount of materials that I have gathered from this. I mean, just chests upon chests. I feel like maybe I need to open up a cobbled deep slate shop at some point. And then the TNT. Yeah, I used quite a lot of it. But of course, I think the majority of this stuff was actually mined up, which is how I got all those materials. And I'm glad to be done with it, but at some point in the future, we also need to mine everything above us. And I'm very thankful that everything above here is stone, as it can be instant mined, but it does go up a heck of a long way, because of course it's the Caves and Cliffs update. And we're underneath a mountain. So I've already put an extraordinary amount of time into this, and I'm kind of worried we might not really see enough slime in this episode for our tree farm, but I'll find a way to get there. So I was already just to disappear for another few hours. Running around in caves, desperately lighting things up, grabbing ores, which I probably have no actual use for. And it occurred to me that I wanted to show you some of the mods that get used in scenarios like this. So I'm going to turn on mini HUD, and you can see down here on the ground that light levels are shown, and this is just incredibly helpful. In the past I think it was more helpful because the light levels needed to be a fair bit higher to prevent mob spawning. But now that they're so low, you can just run around spamming torches and not really worry about it. But it's good to be able to do a little check, and if you see some red numbers, that lets you know that you need to throw down a torch nearby. And the other trick up my sleeve is the despawn sphere. So I've centered one on the center of the slime farm, and as I came over here, I realized that I might be getting close to the edge of this area, and this shows us we don't really need to light anything up further than that. And yes, I saw the glow squids. Okay, I'm going to get me some glow ink. The sphere does actually extend around the corner, and then it goes up there. This is actually really fun, by the way. It might be a grind, but I feel like I'm just getting to experience the Caves and Cliffs update all over again, you know, with these caves everywhere that need taken care of. And the shape and scale of them really are something. Look at this area. Look at how much it opens up. And if I turn this off, I mean, God, it really is just epic. And something has just occurred to me. Every time I place down a torch, we slightly increase the chances of getting slimes in our slime chunks, right? So, shouldn't I actually go ahead and build the farm there first, so that we can start collecting some of these slime balls? And so in the time spent preparing, that has happened. And now when we look down into this space, there is an ominous glow. That is because the floor down here is covered in glow lichen, which I found out doesn't affect the slime's ability to spawn at all. The light level also doesn't influence the chance of a slime spawning. So, some of you would have seen that I did a live stream where I went through a bunch of ideas on what to do with a slime farm, and I settled on using a portal to lure the slimes into the middle. But let me correct myself, it's an iron golem in the middle that lures the slimes into the portals. But in preparing to build this, I started to think that you could have a giant grid of portals if you had enough obsidian. And then wherever the slimes spawn, they would just pick a random direction and then wander straight into a portal. I feel like this would just be so much easier to visualize while I'm not digging. So obviously we wouldn't make the portals this small. In fact, we can't. But if you picture it as these being, let's say, areas that are 3 by 3, the slime picks a random direction. On all directions around it, there's portals. And if you build them in the right space, they'll all link up to the same spot in the nether. And it's the distance between the slime, which could spawn over the back here, and the portal that helps increase the rates. So maybe an upgrade idea for the future is to turn this bottom area into a grid of portals that the slimes naturally move into. For now though, we're going to stick to luring them into the middle with an iron golem, and it needs to be at this height for a very particular reason, and that is so that all the slimes can see where its eyes are. When it sees that, they'll then start jumping towards it. And you know what? If they're at a diagonal like this, it's sort of mostly blocked. I don't know entirely how that'll work. It could be that they see the very edge and head towards anyway. And if the slimes bump into this obsidian, we want to give them a helping hand. So we're going to have water in the corners here to push them towards the portal. And the trick here is just to have like a gap that the water immediately flows into. I am also putting a roof on top of this thing and covering it with slabs because we don't want any slimes spawning in the middle here. So now we simply light this thing up. We have to wait for slimes to spawn, of course, and then they'll be attracted to the middle where the iron golem is, and they will end up going through the portal. So what's the next step? Building a killing mechanism here in the nether. And as I walk past Tango's nether hub, which is an absolute marvel, you can see that my frames are just getting destroyed, especially when standing in this spot here. I need to find a way to optimize my Minecraft setup. Anyways, it's back in this direction that I need to set up the portal that the slimes come through, and because it's built down at the bottom of the world, that means we need to go to the bottom of the nether. And I made the classic mistake of sussing out the exact coordinates of where this needed to go, and then putting my ladder down there at this spot. And that means that we come out of the ladder directly on top of the farm that kills the slimes. And before we look at the contraption, let's actually head down to where the items collect, because there are some chests here. But in the future we'll replace this with some sort of item elevator so we don't have to come all the way down a ladder just to get our slime balls. So the setup is pretty simple to understand. We got an iron golem here to lure out some of the slimes, as they will simply pick a random direction when they come through the nether portal in which they'll pathfind. And a lot of them will simply just fall down onto these soul campfires. And fun fact for you, the soul campfire does twice as much damage as the regular campfire, which is why I've chosen that one. And I forgot to mention another reason for using the campfires. That's because they're not a full block, meaning that hoppers directly under them will pick up the items that accumulate on top. Then we have some bits of lava sticking out on either side, and this is to help reduce the size of the large slimes that come through. And lastly, at the back, behind the portal, we have two wide set of blocks here. That's to stop the slimes from clipping through the blocks. And then while they're inside the blocks taking damage, which happens with the large ones, they'll see the iron golem and come forward. Now, while I'm here in the nether, nothing's happening in the overworld. So I need to be in the overworld for slimes to spawn, but I need to do a lot of cave lighting up first of all. So although I could leave a camera account here in the nether, we're going to go into my test world to see this thing in action. And so now you can see that some of the big slimes will fall down. They might get set on fire on the way down there, and then the damage from the soul campfires just simply breaks them all up to their smallest form, kills them, and that's when we get the slime balls. Now the next bit is up to you to decide how efficient this is, because based on observation, I'm of the opinion that this thing lets the smallest slimes down most of the time, and that they don't get killed in these big chunks of lava that we have on either side. But those are there to help split up the large slimes a little quicker, and all in all it should make the contraption a little faster at killing the slimes and giving us the slime balls. And the reason we want to kill them as quick as possible is just to not put extra stress on the nether. So the idea is they die quicker, and then there's less entities in the nether. So since finishing the construction of the farm, and yes, it is actually finished, I have spent hours upon hours caving and lighting everything up. I am far from done, but it's always through the middle of an activity like this that you then think to keep track of something. So I don't know where I started, but you can see here that I've placed over 3,700 torches. And I've also picked up over 1,000 too, which seems like a peculiar statistic. And so my plan for the end of this episode was to return to the skull and show you the ribcage down below, but the sad reality is this slime farm took me absolutely forever. So to wrap things up, let's find out the results of all my hard work. Not a lot of slime balls, but maybe it'll be just enough for our tree farm. And so with that, we wrap this one up. Thank you for watching, leave a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon with another episode of Hermitcraft. Bye bye!